Well, Penn State Athletic Director Pat Kraft showed me what I've been expecting to see these past 3 weeks from someone in Penn State's leadership. He also gave us some insight as to who could be the Nittany Lions' next head football coach.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, that is right. You are locked on to Penn State football, and thank you so much for joining me on another edition of Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily source for all things Penn State sports. My name is Zach Seiko, and I'm your host of the show, credentialed media member for both Penn State football and Penn State wrestling, a live show to react to Pat Kraft addressing the media in a press conference with a big change to Penn State sports. But I don't think people are fully comprehending, not everybody, there's a good amount of people that are, but not everyone's comprehending why Penn State actually made this move to fire James Franklin. Pat Kraft gave us some insight into that. He also gave us some insight into who's going to be the next head coach for the Nittany Lions. And then Terry Smith, one of those candidates. Yes, Pat Kraft fully believes that Terry Smith is not just a placeholder for Penn State and that he can be a legitimate quality candidate to interview for the job. He takes over. What did he say about where the team's headed and what we're going to expect moving forward? Because while they can't achieve their previous set of goals, they can absolutely try to circle the wagons, run the table, and make the season a lot more entertaining and exciting than when it was. It's just nice to see them get back to the fundamentals of Penn State. And that's where we begin. Of course, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. We will get to the live chat to get your questions, get your comments. But Pat Kraft and Terry Smith both echoed this, is that, and it's something that James Franklin got away from. It was the fundamentals of being Penn State's head football coach. It wasn't about Penn State. It didn't seem like at all for James Franklin. And you're looking for leadership that is going to fight. It is going to be able to overcome that adversity, because it is one thing to lose to Oregon. It's another thing to lose to UCLA and Northwestern all in a 3-week stretch, because there are a lot of people that dismiss this scenario and say, well, look at everything that James Franklin has done and where he's gotten Penn State to. It's because people see Penn State as a middling program. They don't see them any better. They don't see Penn State football being any better than 10-2. You're always going to be second place to the powers that be. Whether that's Ohio State, Michigan for a few years, or the newcomers to the Big Ten, Oregon. Let me point something out specifically about why this is more than just, okay, well, they had a bad 3-week stretch. Surely, no, that's not what this boils down to. You have to step back and look at the bigger picture. Pat Kraft does not make this decision lightly. And the Penn State powers that be, in addition to Pat Kraft, the athletic director, are very conscious of this. Penn State has been second in the Big Ten for the entirety of James Franklin's tenure. Ohio State, Michigan, whoever is carrying the most momentum for that given, and 9 times out of 10, it's been Ohio State. But you had Michigan for that section of that portion of the recent years. I'm not here to debate what went on at Michigan, but they were still there. They still beat Penn State, whether you can justify it or not. Here's the other part of the equation to that, though. Oregon, who has no history in the Big Ten, and honestly, until Dan Lanning took over, wasn't really that kind of program. I think we forget that Oregon was an afterthought until they joined the Big Ten, until Dan Lanning took over. This doesn't help James Franklin's case at all, because Franklin has always been second or third in the Big Ten, despite 12 years being in his 12th season. And then Oregon immediately walks into the Big Ten. Not only does Oregon put itself at the top, they beat Penn State. They step on Penn State to get there. Oregon in one season matched Penn State's Big Ten titles under James Franklin at 1. All they needed was one season, and Oregon had the same amount of Big Ten championship victories as James Franklin did in 11 seasons, because he's not going to get the opportunity to go for one this season, right? Then Oregon comes into Happy Valley, waltzes into Beaver Stadium for the whiteout game, and they defeat you on your home turf. In theory, James Franklin could have been fired after the Oregon game, honestly, because that's what this boils down to. Oh, this is just a rough patch for them. It's not that. It's that Penn State is always trailing behind the powerhouses. And, excuse me. And when a newcomer joins the Big Ten and uses you as a stepping stone to get to the top, that's an issue. People say, though, the outsiders, the national media will say, that's okay. Because Penn State's a good team. They're not great. They're not elite. They're good. This is understandable. But Penn State doesn't see it that way. And that's what Pat Kraft was getting at today. Pat Kraft was talking about how Penn State is looking for national titles. But even still, I defer back to James Franklin didn't even need to necessarily win a national title. The issue is losing to Oregon twice the second they joined the Big Ten. It's seeing, and maybe this is a little bit of envy, maybe this is a little bit of jealousy, not only Dan Lanning seeing quick success with the right resources, the right support, and then Curt Cignetti doing it at Indiana. Indiana is not a top 10 job. I'm tired of seeing people say that Indiana is a better destination than Penn State. That's a better job. That's a better program than Penn State. Objectively, it is not. The numbers back it up. Just anybody's opinion backs it up that Penn State is a better job than Indiana. However, there is the resources. Curt Cignetti has the buy-in from the powers that be at Indiana, and he's succeeding in year one and year two. James Franklin not only has similar resources, but then gets an additional set of resources to go get Andy Kotelnicki, to go get Jim Knowles. You outbid Ohio State to go get presumably the best defensive coordinator in all of college football. To go and retain this superstar roster, this veteran roster that was supposed to be as the best in his tenure. He said this. James Franklin said this. And then assemble what you describe as the best staff in your tenure as well. And not only does nothing change, it gets worse. That is why James Franklin was fired. Penn State, and here's another interesting point, because there was a rumor, oh my goodness, that Adidas, again, this is a rumor. I am not saying this. I'm telling you this is not true. I'm telling you this is not true because I don't want to get caught in this. But there was a rumor on social media that was being reported that Adidas tried to bankroll Penn State into firing James Franklin and paying out the buyout. Well, Pat Kraft came out today. This is fact. And this is what I'm surprised about. I am surprised at this. I was not expecting this. The administration, the athletic department is going to be handling the cost of James Franklin's buyout, meaning they are paying him. So it's not coming from outside money. It's not coming from other business partners. It's not coming from the boosters and the donors. This is on the athletic department to figure out James Franklin's buyout money and how they're going to put it together. Okay. So there you have it. So I wanted to dispel that rumor because that was, wow. I don't know. We're just making things up, huh? Aren't we? Pat Kraft exuded the kind of emotion, the kind of grit, the toughness. I mean, Pat Kraft to an extent was all over the place, as he should have been. This was the end of an era. James Franklin was his friend. James Franklin is well liked for a lot of reasons and for good reasons. The guy is a great man and a great coach, but he was never, you now had your answer that he was never going to get Penn State to the promised land. And under the next bit of adversity, this comes with the territory that you have to be able to mitigate the Oregon loss. Fine, it happened, whatever. But surely you won't lose to UCLA. All right, you did. Surely you won't lose to Northwestern. You did. And I saw passion. I saw anger. I saw sadness and remorse instead of passivity, defeatedness. Is that a word? Somebody who was passive, somebody who was defeated. that looked like he didn't have any answers. Pat Kraft had all the answers today. And he was adamant that Terry Smith is the right guy to lead this team moving forward and is a legitimate coach, a legitimate candidate to potentially take over as Penn State's next head coach. And that's what we're going to talk about. Why Terry Smith is the right guy to take over right now and why he could be in the future. This is his audition. I am not ruling out Terry Smith just because they're going to do a national search. So we're going to get to Terry Smith and his outlook for the team. But before that, Pat Kraft let us know who the coaching candidates and who's going to be one of the most likely ones to join the Nittany Lions and lead them to that national title type of caliber of program. You're thinking Matt Rule? Yeah, Matt Rule is going to be up there. We'll discuss that next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. And this episode is brought to you by Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than just put points on the board. They move crowds, they move culture, and they keep moving the game forward. And you don't necessarily have to point to players that move the game forward, because right now, the people that are moving the game forward for Penn State are Pat Kraft, the athletic director, and Terry Smith, the interim head coach. These guys are emphasizing fundamentals again. They're talking about grittiness. They're mentioning swagger, having fun. The core tenets, the core values of what Penn State football is supposed to be. And Terry Smith and Pat Kraft are making sure those are the focal points going forward. That's how you move the game forward for Penn State right now. And when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, welcome to a live edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. Appreciate you joining me on a Monday afternoon. I know it is working hours at this point in time. So let's jump into the comments section real quick and then start to discuss the candidates that, hey, pipe dream of mine, Mike Elko. That's my number one candidate. Will Stein. But what about the ones that are realistic that Penn State is actually targeting? We'll get to that in just a second. Terry Smith, to me, Stephen, thank you for the comment. Terry Smith, to me, was impressive. No wonder he is a great recruiter. And to me, the thing to come out of the news conference team was not having fun, and the pressure got to them all. And that's what I've said. I said they cracked under the pressure. I said they folded under the pressure because these guys are talented. All of them. Drew Aller's talented. Singleton, Allen, but they didn't play like it. And when you're not maximizing, when the talent looks like anything but, it falls back on James Franklin. Joshua says, if Kraft is looking for a master recruiter, Matt Rule is not the guy. Well, Matt Rule is definitely going to be one of the top candidates for Penn State. Just to whether that is going to excite people, that's going to burst a lot of bubbles. We'll talk about it. Is it true that Matt Rule hasn't won against a top 25 team since 2016, being Navy? And I see we got some responses here. So I don't have Matt Rule's. I do have his top 25 record. I know that it is not good. But here we go. We got some clarification. I believe 2019 with Baylor versus Texas. And why does it matter if Rule is a Penn State guy? Who cares? And you see, here we go. Why do you guys want Matt Rule, who is 2-26 against ranked teams? Okay. So since we're already on the topic of Matt Rule, let's talk about it. Matt Rule is not my top candidate. My top candidate is Mike Elko and then Will Stein. I think if you're Penn State and you're looking, or Mike Shanahan, actually. I really like the idea of Mike Shanahan as the offensive coordinator who's at Indiana. If you can't get Kurt Cignetti, can you get Mike Shanahan, give him the resources, and give him the time to allow Penn State to get to that national title caliber again? Does Matt Rule get you closer to national titles, or does he make Penn State no better than what James Franklin was? So instead of 10-2, you're 9-3 every season. Here's what I want to point about when it comes to the discourse of Matt Rule. Matt Rule being what he is against ranked teams. It's 2-26. He's not that good. Okay. May I remind everybody that he coached at Temple? He coached at He's coaching at Nebraska currently. They're in the middle of a rebuild too. Matt Rule's coached at Temple. He's coached at Baylor. My expectation is not Baylor football and Temple football to be 500 or better against the top 25, top 10 teams. That's not my expectation. My expectation is for Temple, with the right coach, to go 8-4, 9-3, because Penn State, and you do not compare Penn State, what you can do at Penn State versus what you can do at Temple. You do not compare what you can do at Baylor versus what you can do at Penn State. And that was well before the NIL era and the transfer portal, right? He went off to the NFL. NFL's different. That was difficult. But Matt Rule was one of the hottest coaching candidates in all of college football once upon a time. And now he's settled back at Nebraska. Is Matt Rule the best hire, the flashiest hire? It is not. But I'm here to say it's also not the worst hire in the world. You need to get a no from Curt Cignetti first. You need to get a no from Mike Elko first. I think you would need to get a no from Manny Diaz first. Again, my personal favorites are Mike Elko, Will Stein. I'm starting to come around to the idea of a Matt Campbell or an Alex Golish. I think those guys are rising stars in the coaching ranks as well. Penn State really doesn't, again, Penn State can be picky. Penn State doesn't have to settle. Are they settling if they don't get Curt Cignetti? I mean, technically, sure, because you went to your first guy and he said no. And I don't expect Curt Cignetti to leave Indiana. I will be surprised if he leaves Indiana. But that is who Penn State is targeting. Penn State is targeting Matt Rule. They're targeting Curt Cignetti. They're targeting Matt Campbell. Matt Campbell's winning at Iowa State. We just talked about that with Brian Smith on the most recent recorded episode. Matt Campbell would be a great head coach for Penn State. Give him the resources, give him the support, give him the alignment. Campbell would be a good candidate. It goes back to that Penn State is a place where you can and should succeed. If Penn State has all the resources, Penn State is a top 10 job. It is a top 10 job between the amount of NIL that you can and will have, the support, the resources, everything. Penn State is a top 10 brand in college football. And you should be able to win and succeed as such. Does Matt Rule do that? Matt Rule checks a lot of other boxes that some people may not realize. Matt Rule's from Central Pennsylvania. Matt Rule played at Penn State. He's a letterman. Played under Joe Paterno. That's still going to be important to a good amount of people that are affiliated and associated with Penn State. He has NFL coaching experience. He's led Group of 5 programs, Power 4 programs. He's coached in the NFL. He's good friends with Pat Kraft. Pat Kraft and Matt Rule have worked together. So it should not be shocking to see Matt Rule at the top of a lot of hot boards, a lot of big boards for future Penn State coaching candidates. He is not a terrible hire. Is it my favorite hire? Personally, not. I think that Mike Elko can give you a lot. But again, to go up against Texas, that's kind of a dream. I understand where everything, it's the same thing with Curt Cignetti. Indiana's given Curt Cignetti everything he could ask for. But Penn State, with who they are actually targeting, everybody can put out their big boards and say, hey, this is who I would like. This is who I would want them to get. Curt Cignetti's number one. I would probably say that Matt Rule, Manny Diaz maybe are 2 and 3. And they're not just going to hire the first guy that they interview. Just because this is an order of who they prefer, they're going to actually conduct these interviews, go through them, and you'll get your answers. So your number 2 candidate, your number 3 candidate might end up talking themselves out. Or if you get Matt Campbell on the phone, if you get Alex Golish on the phone, and guys that are genuinely interested, they could vault their way up to the top. It's like, man, I just needed to talk to this guy. So Penn State has its first, this is Penn State's first impression of the list that they made when they fired James Franklin. It's Curt Cignetti, it's Matt Rule, it's Manny Diaz, it's Matt Campbell. That's more or less the order as well. Those would be the top 4 there. But then you got to consider Will Stein. You got to consider Terry Smith, who's the interim head coach right now. He gets an audition. He's a Penn State guy. I'm sitting here talking about how Matt Rule is a Penn State grad. He played for Penn State. That guy's in the building too. His name is Terry Smith. Terry Smith, everything that I saw today embodies what Penn State wants to get back to its legacy of what it means to be the Penn State football program. Terry Smith actually embodies that much more so than James Franklin does, and much more so that, and that's going to be what we're going to find out here moving forward with this Nittany Lions team. If you see Penn State beat Iowa, I don't expect them to beat Indiana or Ohio State, but you give them a fight. Hey, Terry Smith has the best opportunity to prove himself as Penn State's coach. Okay? So I'm willing to give Terry Smith the benefit of the doubt. Those are the five biggest players right now. Matt Rule, Curt Cignetti. I'm going a little bit out of order here. Matt Rule, Curt Cignetti, Terry Smith, Matt Campbell. And I'm blanking on, oh my goodness, I'm blanking on the last one because I had five. Curt Cignetti, Matt Rule, Terry Smith, Matt Campbell. And I guess that's really the main four there. Because like I said, I think Mike Elko, Brian Hartline's not a bad candidate either. If they really want to go with a rising coordinator of sorts, Will Stein would be my favorite. It's about getting back to what makes Penn State Penn State. And Curt Cignetti, if you can get him away from Indiana, that's your top choice. It's not even going to be an easy thing to get Matt Rule away from Nebraska. Nebraska likes Matt Rule. Everyone just assumes that, oh, because he went to Penn State, that he's just going to say yes. It's going to be difficult to get him away from Nebraska as it is. I don't know that there's really Manny. Did I blank on Manny Diaz? I'm blanked on Manny Diaz. So there we go. I blanked on Diaz. Diaz is well liked by Penn State when he was there for those couple of seasons. And the same things that I say about Matt Rule absolutely apply to Manny Diaz. Diaz having the opportunity to coach. He's coached at Miami. He's coached at other Power 4 schools. He's doing well with Duke. I thought Duke was going to be an excellent, and I predicted that. I said, when I saw the Duke job opened up and Manny Diaz was getting head coaching interest, and I said, he's probably going to land at Duke. That would make a ton of sense for him to be a head coach again at the ACC level. Yep. And he's doing well. He's doing well. Those are the first five for Penn State. And then you can start to talk about Golesh, Hartline, Will Stein. Really, there's not necessarily. I'll tell you who's a bad head coaching candidate: Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin's a terrible head coaching candidate for Penn State. I personally like the idea of Fran Brown. I'm not opposed to that one, but I know that Fran Brown is a little polarizing right now for Penn State fans. So, but he's an excellent recruiter, and he will build out but he can't coach. Fran Brown has the energy that I would have wanted to see from James Franklin, but it goes against what I say about how Penn State needs a Penn State type of guy. So Fran Brown's not going to be the most preferred candidate. Start with those five, then work your way outside towards, again, rattle them off: Golesh, Stein, whomever. All right, Terry Smith takes over. How can Terry Smith put himself at the top of this head coaching conversation? And what should we expect from Penn State moving forward? And Terry Smith also gave us some insight into changes that are being made and could be made when it comes to this depth chart. That is all coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. And this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you do not want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. You'll love using FanDuel because it gives you so many ways to play. You can build parlays. You can try player props. You can even follow live lines during the games. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. And whether you're a casual fan or love diving into stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. Again, new customers, you can bet just $5, and if you win, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use all across FanDuel. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Today's show is also brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, and get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Maximize your investments, increase your savings rate, easily review finances with your partner or financial advisor, keeping a clear view of your financial health week to week or long term. Don't let this financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's right, 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONCollege. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege. And I thank everyone again for joining the live show. Let's talk about Terry Smith. Penn State recruiting is just taking hits left and right. 2027 class is done. 2026 class is extremely in flux. Here's what I'll say about that. Two things. One, it's not the end of the world. Oh, but Keemon Spell's a 5-star. Khalil Taylor's a really good player. Penn State knew what it was doing when they fired James Franklin, that this was going to happen. These are quality players. These are good players. Who knows? Some of them might even stay committed. It goes back to what James Franklin said in his recruiting pitches. This was a common thing that James Franklin had said. Commit to me. Not to Penn State. Commit to me. And it became more about me than we are. And Penn State, I think Penn State realized that they can't continue to go in that direction. Because Franklin has said this. That's not me loosely quoting him. That is James Franklin admitting, hey, assistant coaches are going to change. They're going to move to different places. Commit to me. How about commit to me, the head coach, because I'm going to stay here, but also commit to the university. It became more about what James Franklin was doing for Penn State as opposed to what James Franklin and Penn State was doing for this team. And I think that's the reset that Penn State needed. Because it got more about what James Franklin was doing and not about what both parties were doing, because James Franklin doesn't have the success that he has without Penn State. Penn State isn't where it is without James Franklin, but you need both sides. You need both parties in order to do that. It wasn't more so one, it wasn't more so the other. Okay? So Terry Smith, that is what I saw immediately emphasized. I saw somebody that acknowledged that he's a Penn State legacy. He played wide receiver. This guy at Penn State, he's a letterman. His family's been there. He talked about his dad being in the stands. He talked about his kids just recently graduating from the university. He himself, Terry Smith, if he can show that he's not just an extension of James Franklin, he has the best opportunity to prove this, because part of the reason Franklin is such a good recruiter or had recruiting in such a strong spot, it wasn't just all James Franklin. Let's not act like James Franklin recruited every single player and it was all him. He was helpful. He was great at what he did when it came to recruiting. Terry Smith plays a big part in that. And so does, of course, Anthony Poindexter or any of those guys on the staff. But Terry Smith is honestly one of the best recruiters in the country as an assistant as it is. So what happens when you give him the power to lead, to give direction? How is he going to be as a game day head coach? That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for somebody that can inspire this group. This locker room looks lost. I don't like people saying that, oh, the team was still fighting. They were still playing. I saw energized football for a half of a fourth quarter against Oregon. and a little bit, maybe 10 minutes against UCLA when they were coming back down 27-7. So I can point to two parts or two instances where an extremely talented Penn State football team was actually fighting to win a game. And that was the final 10 minutes against Oregon and give or take 10 minutes against UCLA when you're down by 3 touchdowns. That has to change. Terry Smith called that out. He said, I don't want people, when they're analyzing our football games, analyzing our performances, to question the effort we put in. It has to be about the other team played better football than us. It's never going to be about effort and will. All right, that checks that box. That's one. Somebody that understands what Penn State is and what it means and what Penn State football means. Terry Smith lived it. He played it. He was a wide receiver at Penn State. He graduated. So he's seen it all. He's seen the past. He sees the present and has an idea of what the future needs to hold. So that's why Terry Smith is one of the best candidates for the Nittany Lions if they happen to promote him. But he has to prove it. He has to prove it. Here's what's going for him. Aside from being a Penn State football player and a Penn State grad, he's been alongside James Franklin for the past decade. He's been the associate head coach for 5 years. How much different is this going to be for him? But now he gets the final say. Now he gets to call all of the shots. He is an excellent recruiter. The reason you haven't seen the 2026 class totally decimated completely, and why I still have some loose confidence as to, and this is, I should have pointed this out when I said, hey, there's a twofold part to this. Pat Kraft said it, simply put, nobody else could have said it better. I don't care about 2027. Oh, that's pretty bold, but it's the right way to approach it. These kids are not at Penn State yet. These recruits, they are not playing for Penn State. Pat Kraft, it's not to be dismissive of them. It's not to be insulting to them. But what about the players that are in the Lash building right now? There's still a season to be played. And I know that they can't reach their goals, but go mess stuff up. Go ruin Ohio State season. Go ruin Indiana season. Go take the wind out of the sails of Iowa, Nebraska, all those teams that think that they still have a shot this season. Just go mess it up for them. Also, if you're Penn State football, okay, well, what about the players individually? Are they going to be inspired? Are they going to even care? They should, because everybody's draft stock is tanked. And I feel bad for Drew Aller because he doesn't get a chance to fix anything. But Singleton, maybe Katron Allen's the only one that has done anything to improve his draft stock. But I look across the board at every veteran player on this team. Singleton, I'll go through the offense. Singleton, everybody on the offensive line. Trevor Pena, Kyron Hudson, Devontae Ross, Khalil Dinkins. The defense, Zach Hugh-Wheatley, A.J. Harris. I don't know that Amari Campbell would have gone off to the NFL, but he was playing better than anybody else that I've named, but he can do something to improve his draft stock if he wants to leave. Deni Dennis Sutton, Zane Durant. Basically, Katron Allen and Deni Dennis Sutton are the only guys that have done anything to help themselves for the future. You have so much to prove if you are a senior player, if you are a veteran. A.J. Harris was talked about as a first-round NFL draft pick, and this is what Terry Smith alluded to in his press conference, that the guy was benched. I thought he was hurt. I said, oh, man, Harris stumbled on that play. He stumbled trying to keep up with the Northwestern wide receiver for the touchdown. He still gave up the touchdown, but I thought he might have tweaked something. Nope. He got burnt. He got beaten coverage, and they benched him. So everybody has something to prove here. This isn't a lost season for the individuals on the football team. But here's what I would do if I'm Terry Smith. It's a blank slate. It's a reset. Everybody's job is open except Ethan Grunkemeyer. You need to rally around a quarterback. I know there was a QB2 battle and everything, but nobody's mentioned Jackson Smolik in the past month or 2 months. There's a reason for that because Grunkemeyer has separated himself. But I would say at running back, at wide receiver, at offensive line, anywhere on the defensive side of the football, if you're taking this for granted, if you are not giving 110%, if you are not earning it, you are not guaranteed anything. Meaning that Katron Allen's running back number 1, and there's no more 50-50 timeshare if that's the case. It is Katron Allen, 25, 30 carries a game, maybe Singleton gets 5. If it needs to be that way, to spark some sort of motivation, to reset. If you're giving up sacks, you're missing your run block assignments, play the next guy. All those guys are high-end 4-stars that are on the depth chart. If Drew Shelton's not doing his job, if Nolan Rucci's not doing his job, or Vanga Ioane or Nick Dawkins and the people behind them are healthy, it should be a reset. Play them. Defensive line, linebacker, secondary. AJ Harris was benched. They benched the star cornerback in favor of Elliott Washington and Audavian Collins. They benched Antoine Belgrave Shorter for King Mac. So let's not sit here and act like, oh, Penn State is stuck in its ways. They won't make adjustments. They are making adjustments with James Franklin, but now I would say it's a complete no starting spot is guaranteed. No playing time is guaranteed other than Grunkemeyer, unless Grunkemeyer totally, crumbles. Okay. I'm not saying that a 4-interception type of game doesn't mean that you don't look to Smolik or somebody else, but everywhere else, I would say this is a brand new era at Penn State. It begins now. Whether Terry Smith's the guy or not, it begins right now. Your job's not safe. Your job's not safe. Your job's not safe. Your playing time's not guaranteed. You have to re-earn it in practice and on game days. So I liked what Terry Smith said about getting grittiness, not questioning effort. He didn't allude to anything. He didn't specifically say, hey, everybody's spot is up for grabs, but this is a prove it time now for the entire team because they can't win a national title. They can't get to the Big Ten championship, but they can still go 9-3. I'm not saying it's likely. I'm not saying I expect it, but let's not act like this Penn State team is terrible. Were they overrated when they were the number 2 team in the country and a preseason national title favorite, a strong contender, one of the top 4 teams? Yes. But is this one of the worst teams in the entire Big Ten conference? When they're aligned, when they're humming, when they're actually playing for something? No, they're not. Because they just went to the college football playoff semifinal last year, and a bulk of that team is still here. This is not a bad team. This is not a team that is devoid of talent. They're misdirected, they're misguided, and that's why Penn State made a change. That is where I'm going to have to wrap things up here on this edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. So we heard from Pat Kraft. We saw the passion that we needed for Penn State. We got a glimpse without a direct answer to, hey, who's your list for ideal coaching candidates, Kraft? Who are your top candidates here? We got that. We also get a head start on what to expect from Terry Smith. I don't expect this team to roll over. If they do, that takes Terry Smith's coaching for a future at Penn State. If he wants to be the head coach, he has a lot to earn in this timeline right now. So I expect Penn State to win. I expect Penn State to be competitive. I am not favoring them against Ohio State and Indiana, but outside of those 2 games, it should be a toss-up against Iowa. They should go into Iowa and at least make that game extremely close, if not win. So other than that, other than Ohio State and Indiana, Penn State itself should expect to win all the remaining games on the schedule. That is where I will wrap things up here. Thank you so much for joining me on a live edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. We're going to continue to have conversations about the rumors, coaching candidates that emerge or they fall behind. It's all going to be here every single day, talking about what's next for this Penn State football program, along with all of your other favorite Penn State sports teams. My name is Zach Sako, your host of Locked On Nittany Lions Daily. Thank you so much for joining me here on a live show.